so much light, so much self love, self-care, self-sovereignty, and the power that we actually hold within us. The freedom that is just inherently ours. We don't need to ask anybody for whether we're free. we are free.
Hello, this is Nina from Raphaella Soul Sessions. I'm a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner. I have a message here for the people of Earth from the higher realms of consciousness and my client's higher self. So this is from a BQH session facilitated on the 20th of March, 2021. I asked if there were any final messages for mankind. The client's higher self said, operate in these times with peaceful, non-argumentative, non-compliance to anything that feels wrong, regardless of where it's from. We speak now of sovereignty. Simply be the example without trying to persuade anyone of anything. Demonstrate your truth at all times. This energetic signature is the model of sovereignty. The more authentic this is, as people awaken, they will vibrate towards it more and more. Just as the flower turns to the sun, so it can soak more light in, which in turn allows for the flower to become more open. Do not argue. Do not perpetuate wars of any kind. Do not attach. It will only lessen your vibration. Demonstrate in each and every moment love, light, unity, and peace. Be peace, and please do not argue about peace.
Hi, everyone. It's Candace Craw-Goldman again with another exciting episode of Quantum Realms 2021. And today I am very, very pleased to welcome my friend and colleague, Nina Morrocco. Hi, Nina.
Hi, Candace. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy that you're here. I have been spending some time watching what you're up to lately, and it nourishes me. And I want you to talk about a little bit of that today.
Well, I have to say that what you nourished me a huge amount over Christmas and New Year. I was flat on my back. I put my back out. My daughter was unwell. She had a fever. She was not good. So I was just flat out, single mom, on your own. You're on your own and everyone's not well. And I listened to the session that you did with Hara about freedom, and it changed my whole, I can't even describe it. I had been in my bed for 2 weeks, and then I listened to that, and it just shifted my vibration completely. I felt it right in here and right in my solar plexus, and cried my eyes out, and whatever was keeping me in that lower vibration just lifted, because that was just so lovely to listen to and so powerful. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. It was beautiful.
Oh my gosh, what a gift to be able to say that. You know, I was I'm going to leave a link to this below, the show that Nina is talking about, because it's not on the Quantum Healers channel. Actually, it is on Hara Katsiki's YouTube channel. So I will definitely leave a link below where viewers can go check that out if they want to. What Nina's referencing is a session that I had on myself, quantum healing session, a long distance session. And in that session, I had this this sense to connect to the part of me that needed to understand more about being free, actually, freedom, what that was about. And probably for me, one of the most fascinating parts of this session for me personally, Nina, I don't know how you feel about it, but I got to slip into, just for a scene, and there's more that can be discovered about this later, I guess, but I slipped into my own, I think fourth or fifth great grandmother's body, and was standing in a house back in 1776, standing in her body in I think it was a blue dress, near a fireplace hearth. And I described a little bit about what freedom meant to her, or what was going on in her world in colonial America in 1776. And one of the things that I love about this story is my relative's actual name. Her name's Thankful. Her first name is Thankful. Can you believe that? Her name was Thankful Bebe, B-E-B-E. And that is an actual relative of mine that lived during that time. And
wow. It was so beautiful. And at first I didn't realize it was you. And then I realized it was actually you speaking. And I was like, the tears started. And it was just, I don't know what it was, but there was something about the whole vibration of what you were saying. It just spoke to me right in here. And it was, it really lifted me up during that time.
Well, thank you so much. You know, that's one of the reasons why I'm actually wanting to speak with you today in Quantum Realms, is looking around at what's going on in the world. And of course, we're recording this in the early part of 2021, actually the latter part of March. This will be airing in the middle part of April of 2021. There's a lot of things that keep coming back to me as being important about living right now and living as a human being in 2021. And for me personally, that revolves around the word freedom. And I've always been a little bit of a rebel, at least in my heart. I've questioned authority, I've questioned rules or control when I've seen it over my life, and sometimes flat just destroyed it if it's in front of me. I didn't care what the consequences were. But that's all come to a head and come to a big, fat bullseye place in my head right now with what's going on. And the people that I find that I'm gaining strength from are people such as yourself, who seem to be thinking about some of the same things.
Yeah. Well,
where did this come in your life, Nina? Can you?
It's always been there. I think I've always had this kind of curious, and I don't take the first answer that's always given. I'm like, well, there's got to be something else about what's going on. I mean, I remember when I was 5 years old and I first went to school and they started talking about religion and stuff. And I was like, it doesn't sound right. 5 years old, like, that's not really. So I think it's always been there. I've always questioned authority. I've never been somebody who's been able to have a boss. I'm not one of those people. And yeah, I think I've just always been wondering what else is going on, and not able to accept the mundane being the inevitable. I think I mentioned that the other day on one of my posts, but that is just something that I can't accept. That is, we're not that much, we're not capable of that much. We can't do. I've never been, that's never resonated with me.
Making
So,
yourself small, right?
yeah.
Isn't that interesting? I too, I wasn't subjected to much religious training as a child, but I too, when it did become available to me in visiting or what other people were saying, yeah, I threw that up first too. Some of the things said was, well, that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And
Yeah.
you probably, as I do, have had many clients who come to us wanting to explore their own consciousness who've said something similar.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think growing up, I had parents as well. They always questioned everything. They never took the first answer as the truth. And that's something I love about them, and something that has also frustrated me about them. But ultimately, it's led me to be similar in a similar way. Um, I'm always striving to know more about what's actually going on, as opposed to just the surface layer of of everything that's happening. So yeah.
I too, my parents too were a little bit like that, and questioned many things and got out of sticky situations, and
Yeah.
some very serious ones. My dad in the Vietnam War and my mother in Nazi Germany, and as some of their experiences in wartime that's coming through my makeup right now, my personality and my genetics. Not just thankful back in 1776, but I think I come from a lineage of this, and it's certainly I'm feeling it within my own self during this time. And as I've watched some of your writing and some of your social posts, I wonder if you could talk to me a little bit about how you move through your day in Scotland. Things are pretty tough there with rules and restrictions, aren't they?
Yeah.
How do you manage day to day? This whole project that we're doing this year, Quantum Realms 2021, is, how do we as humans, how do we get through this? How do you get through this and try to keep some of yourself intact?
Well, yeah, we've been in a fairly strict lockdown, our second lockdown since just after Christmas, Boxing Day. We were put into another lockdown. And it was very different from the first one. The first one seemed to be much more of a breeze. This one was tougher. My daughter's getting a bit older now, and she had just been getting really used to going to nursery and coming home, and we had our routine. And then that just went, no, that's not happening anymore. And it was a struggle, but at the same time, I couldn't think of anything more wonderful than being at home with my little girl when she's small. Really, it was tough, but we got through it together. And sometimes I think she just inspires me with how, even at the age she is of 4 years old, being so emotionally wise, and wise to my emotions and how I'm doing, and being able to lift me up when she can sense that things are tough for me. And she blows me away. She's amazing. But day to day, I think as long as we can get outside, as long as we can breathe the fresh air, and she's back at nursery now, which is better, which is giving me more time to be with myself, with my clients, be able to just to get that little bit more space to do the things I do. But I mean, I'm not going to lie, it's been a real struggle being a single mom, going through this pretty much on my own, but at the same time having a beautiful community of friends and people on the phone. And you know, we've got through it, but it's, I mean, and I've been incredibly lucky that I can work through this as well. And I think being able to, and I have very much leaned on the work for support as well, because the energy and the insight and the perspective that comes through the work is really something that is so incredibly uplifting and powerful, and it really has got me through this time on many occasions. But then again, it's like, no, sometimes there needs to be a lull in the session so I can, you know, come back to my center. I can lean on myself and keep going. But yeah, it's having a purpose has been a huge help for this time. And I mean, I can't even imagine what so many people who have lost their livelihood and what they've known to be their lives is like for them. I feel incredibly lucky to have been in the situation I've been in. But yeah, it's been wild, really, really wild time. But yeah.
I'm gonna ask you about some of the things that that you're learning in sessions a little bit later, because I very much want to know about some of that information and wisdom, and some of the stories that you have to tell about doing some of the quantum healing session work that you've been doing. But before we even start all of that, I want to talk to you as a mom. You know, we are generations, 2 generations apart, really. If you think about
Yeah.
it, you've got a young child, and I have grandchildren about the age of Marnie, and so I've been thinking a lot about that. You know, the world we live in, how we explain that to our children, how the thing that comes up in me, and I am certain it comes up in you, is the protective nature of the mother in all of this. This shines through you like a pure, piercing beacon of light. And I want to talk to you about that. You just finished saying your beautiful little girl has been supporting you. How are you framing what's going on in the world to her experiences and what she's seeing? How are you talking to a 4-year-old about all this?
There's not a huge amount that she can really grasp about it. I mean, like if we go into the supermarket, I've got a little CBD hand thing, you know, it's organic hand sanitizer thing. I really just do it for everyone else. It's not, you know, I'm not concerned or worried about that. But also for her, just so that she knows that, you know, things are slightly different at the moment, and she takes it on pretty well. As far as really understanding what's going on, I don't think she fully grasps it. She knows that, you know, the ladies at nursery wear the masks, and I think they mention it to her, why they're doing that. But really, I don't think she's fully gotten on it. I did catch her. We were away at a friend's house, and she picked up one of their cloth masks and put it over her face, and my heart kind of went, oh, they're being so conditioned, even at that young age. So she kind of sees what's happening, but I don't think she fully understands. She probably overhears some of my conversations, and, you know, switches on to that stuff. And I don't really edit anything that I'm saying for her, because I want her to know. I don't want to omit anything, because I want her to see that there's more than meets the eye. We don't have the television on or anything like that, so I try and protect her from most of that side of it. But I just kind of, if she ever asks about anything, then I'm happy to explain it to her. But I'm very sort of tentative, and I don't put too much on her with it.
Well, of
So,
course, at 4, she can't understand the larger concepts. I guess what you're getting at are some of the smaller ones. You already mentioned the face coverings at nursery, so they don't make the little ones wear them, and that's good. That's really good. So I guess I wonder too, kind of the before and after. What I'm finding a lot of clients talk about is the playmates, and different things that happen like on the playground. I mean, they're used to, in some places, big red police tape, can't go on a playground right here, and some of these kinds of things. And then some of the parents who have a completely different perspective than you do. Has it come up in that way with friends or playmates, or are you?
A little bit, in that I mean, they want us to wear a mask to go and pick the child up and drop them off, which is all outside. We don't go in the building. It's all outside. As it stands, we don't have to wear a mask when we're out in the open air here. And I don't wear a mask anyway. So there's occasionally a little bit of, the funny looks and the over-exaggerated looks, because you can't see their faces, so they have to use their eyes to really gesticulate at you. Occasionally there's a parent wondering why I'm not, complying to that. But I don't have to explain myself. And apart from that, I mean, the nursery is really good. They're outside a lot. There's no social distancing between them. I think the only social distancing is between the different classes. Apart from that, they're pretty good at keeping as much as they can. The thing I worry about most is Marnie's speech isn't that up to scratch yet. She's not really. It's very much one-sided conversations a lot of the time. So I worry about, her learning how to speak, and not, not the lip reading part just not being there. That's probably my biggest concern with her teachers wearing masks and things like that. I think that would probably be the main one for me. But really, they've been really good with them, I have to say. They've not been too over the top, thankfully. She's young enough for it to have not really affected. I don't know how this would have been if she had been at school. I can't imagine what it's like for parents with their kids at school. It's wild.
I found out how much of a lip reader I am during all of this. And
yeah, for sure.
I actually, I don't pretend to understand anyone, and I'm not rude about it. But when I don't understand anyone, I'll just say it. And, it's just so funny that the exchange can be kind of funny, because then they'll repeat it and I'm like, sorry, that, just kind of. And I'm really not trying, I don't make it up. If I can understand them, I understand them. But so often they just yank that thing down and then they talk to me.
Yeah.
And nobody's ever been rude about it. I've never gotten into a confrontation anywhere about any of it. Yet I'm kind of just I'm not playing the game of control. I'm just not going to do it. And I get a lot of strength from those of you who feel similar to me. And on this whole idea of being a mom, I wanted to talk a little bit about trusting the medical system. You and I both have gone through some pretty big, significant things early days, pregnancy and birth with our children. I had 2 preterm pregnancies. I was in the hospital for a long time with both of them. Both my children were born, and once they were born, we were pretty much home free. The thing was all about the pregnancy, but I did have to absolutely count on the medical system for many, many things. My life, my children's life. I asked questions then. I probably, decades later, I would have asked probably more and somewhat different questions had I be in a similar situation right now. But
Yeah.
you and your child, and you can talk about that as you want, about what the things that you've gone through, but you're still involved in the medical system. You still have to deal with the medical system. You have to trust them with some of what's going on with your little girl. And
Yeah.
yet there's this thing that we're having to deal with that we don't even really need to do anything other than we all know what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that as a mom?
Oh,
First, tell us the story a little bit for those who don't know it, just, a background of what you've been through.
yeah.
Just,
Well,
compactly, so that they know that it's not a small thing what you went through.
yeah, it was, I had hyperemesis gravidarum, starting at 6 weeks. And it wasn't just a little bit of morning sickness that stopped at 12 weeks. It was full-blown vomiting continually for 7.5 months, up to 25 times a day. It was really severe. That massively impacted my mental health, to the point where I had a team get me through to the end of that pregnancy, because I almost didn't make it. It was really, really rough. And then when Marnie was born, it was a really difficult birth. They used forceps, and that caused a huge amount of damage to her skull and her brain. Part of her brain was actually hanging out the bottom of her skull. Her cerebellum was hanging out the bottom of her skull. And that stopped the flow of spinal fluid. So she had hydrocephalus, which wasn't detected until she was 10 months old. But there was another problem in that she had internal hemangioma in her throat that was growing rapidly, that they found out at 2 weeks old was nearly completely closing up her airways. So she had to have regular bronchoscopies. So we were in and out almost monthly for these scopes to have a look down and see what was going on in her throat. And they put her on a beta blocker to try and reduce this massive hemangioma. They said it was the biggest one they'd ever seen in a baby. So yeah, it was massive. So that was 3 years of my life, from pregnancy, birth, and 2 years solidly afterwards, was trying to get my head around all of that, whilst also trying to stay true to who I was, which was the person who naturally questions everything, and especially when it's to do with my daughter. It first started in pregnancy, I guess. The medical system doesn't really know very much about hyperemesis. They don't really pay attention to it. They didn't diagnose me until I was about 20 weeks. That was, I had to, this is a little graphic, but I actually had to take some of my own vomit to the hospital to show them what was actually going on, because I had so much acid that I was throwing up parts of my insides. It was that harsh. I had to show them what I was throwing, so they would actually pay attention to me, that there was something really serious going on here. And eventually they did, but not until halfway through. I was 20 weeks by the time they eventually said, okay, you have hyperemesis. So then they gave me a whole load of anti-sickness drugs, which I just threw up. They did nothing. But the thing that was deteriorating most was my mental health, and feeling so isolated and alone with it, because really nobody understood at all. And then I would say when it got to later in the pregnancy, when I really realized that my mental health was completely shot, I started seeing ladies who would come around and speak to me. They were social work type ladies. They would come and speak to me, and they were really, really shocked at how bad it got. They took one look at me and took me into hospital immediately and said, you know, you need proper help. And so then I had a team of psychiatric nurses, doctors, midwives, a whole bunch of people that I would just tell my story to over and over again. And they would just kind of look at me with blank expressions and try and prescribe me antidepressants. And I think it was when I was told by a psychiatric nurse that I would never breastfeed because they were going to put me on antidepressants immediately as soon as Marnie was born. So I would never be allowed to breastfeed her. And that was the moment Mama Tiger came out. That was it. I was like, no. That was, I mean, I thank that nurse for doing that, because that really put me in that space of, I suddenly realized the only person who was going to get me through this was me. There was no one else. There was no doctor. There was no pill. There was no, I had to get myself through it. And you know, it's funny. The thing I did, I bought a hypnobirthing course. That was the thing I did to get me through it. So yeah, that the last 10 weeks of my pregnancy, I did hypnobirthing, and that was the thing that really got me through. Which is funny. Like I'd never really joined the two as to what I'm doing now, but yeah, that was
wow. Yeah, it's in here.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think when you've got a baby, a very, very small baby that is ill, and you are handing that tiny little human over to people who don't know you, don't know your story, don't know the baby, and they're doing things to that baby that is life or death, you know, anesthesia and things like that. It's, yeah, that mama tiger thread stays in there. You want to make sure and really, I mean, I think looking people directly in the eye and saying, can I trust you with my child? Is this the right thing that we're doing here? As long as you know. And thankfully, Marnie's dad, even though we're not together now, he was fantastic the whole time, and we were a unit. We really made sure that everybody who looked after Marnie knew what they were doing. Otherwise, we had something to say about it. So, yeah, I think we maybe said more than most people would. I think we were a little more thorough than most people. But yeah, certainly when you're dealing with a young baby that's, you know, you're handing over their life when you're handing them over. So, you know, you need to know that the right people are in charge. So yeah, thankfully we had amazing consultants who are, you know, the world renowned people who were dealing with Marnie. So it was wonderful. They were really amazing. But, you know, we had to really put a lot of faith in that she was in the best hands that she could possibly be in. But I mean, the breastfeeding thing came up a few times. They tried to make me stop feeding her because of the throat thing, and they tried to tell me, you know, she had a big infection in her head from the forceps, left a big hole in her head, and she had a big infection, and she wasn't putting on weight, and they tried to say that was my milk and all of these things. And that was another one of those times where Mama Tiger came out, and I really dug my heels in and said, that's absolutely not true. My body is creating antibodies because she has a huge infection in her body. It's not creating fat, it's creating antibodies. So I think it's one, I had a huge amount of trust for Marnie, and two, I think, everything was mechanical. It wasn't, she was never sick. She was never like really ill. It was all kind of, the big things that were wrong were mechanical issues that could be fixed. So we were very lucky in that sense. And I also had a huge sense that she would be okay, and that all of this was a big initiation for both of us. Very early on, I did consider whether I was going to be able to continue with the pregnancy because it was so extreme. And I wondered if I could, go on with this. Would either of us survive? It was that extreme. And so I remember it was about 9 weeks into the pregnancy. I said, can I actually do this? I don't know if I can really do this. And all I'd ever wanted to do was be a mom. That hadn't been on my mind at all. I couldn't think of anything I'd want more than to be a mom. And so this was a heartbreaking, consideration to be having. And she came to me in light being form. All I remember was these two huge eyes. And I was lying on my bed, just kind of in and out of kind of awake and asleep. And I just saw these huge eyes and this light figure being saying, I've chosen you and I have a really big mission here. And I've chosen you to be my mom, and I have something I need to do here. And I woke up from that, and at that point, I didn't know if it was a vision or a dream, or I wasn't really sure whether I was asleep or awake. And I came back from that, and I knew that I had to continue with what I was doing. I knew that there was something bigger than me, bigger than this situation going on, and that I just had to keep going. And I think that thread of endurance kind of was throughout the whole situation, the whole thing that happened. It was all there.
How has this I have still a few really got some questions about the whole experience, but let me ask you this: how has all of that experience prepared you for what we're going through now? Because I bet it has something to do with it.
Well, endurance again, I think, is probably. And yeah, having seen the medical system from the inside and how that all works, and having a very cautious outlook on it, I think that the whole situation has made me be able to endure what's happening now, and really have a lot more empathy for the things that people go through, the things that people are dealing with. I can't imagine what it would be like having a baby right now and having to do that whole hospital system thing and birth, and that must be really, really, really hard. And having a sick child right now must be incredibly difficult. How it prepared me, I think the word probably that keeps coming up is endurance. I think, just being able to keep going.
Can I ask you this? And of course, this is very personal and private, so you don't have to answer. But
Okay.
we work in quantum healing sessions. Often we're looking for the root causes of things. So would you share with us the root cause? Well, really, basically, why did you have to go through that during the pregnancy? And then of course there's the whole, root cause of Marnie going through with her injury and her throat. And of course, this, throat chakra speaking and all of that, and brainstem connection and all of that, and you vomiting. There's the throat chakra again. All of that.
Yeah.
I wonder, how does that all play into now, into 2021? Do you see a connection? I kind of felt like there must be one.
There must have been some reason why we had to go through that then to prepare us for now. I mean, I really feel like that time was an initiation for me. I wouldn't have found this work any other way, I don't think. I really, really felt the need to heal myself so much after that so that I could be okay for Marnie. Yeah, I think a lot of that is about standing in our truth, standing in the truth of who we are, what we know, what we've been through, and speaking the truth and not being afraid of what anyone else says or feels. It's so interesting that you bring up the throat chakra and how important that is for us at the moment to be firm in that. Yeah, I think it led to a massive growth in me being able to really step into what I'm here to do. And Marnie's a huge part of that. She's really helped me do that. And yeah, I'm very, very grateful for her. Very grateful.
I keep hearing sort of trial by fire. Anybody who's had, stomach acid isn't a small trifling thing. And if it's in the wrong direction, it can cause lots of, but, I keep hearing trial by fire. If you've been, if you were doing that so much, to gain some sort of strength here in this area, and then
it like that.
and then Marnie herself having her throat.
Yeah.
That's just fascinating to me. And all of these ancestral connections are just simply fascinating to me that,
I wonder if we're clearing some kind of karma from somewhere else. I wonder if we had something else going on at some point and that needed to be cleared in this life. I don't know, but yeah, I'd never made that connection before.
So you haven't asked about this in sessions of your own, actually.
I did do a session for Marnie, a surrogate, for Marnie, and we got some really interesting information about a previous life. It was difficult for me to really take on the information because on one hand it's very, very powerful to have that information about your child on that wider scale, but at the same time you never want to think you've done your child any harm. So yes, I have done a little bit of digging there to see where some of that might be from. But yeah, I think really I've just kind of boiled it down to this was an initiation for both of us. Marnie too.
So with all of that in mind, and with all of these medical situations, shall we say, presenting themselves to us, that's informed you, I bet, on some of this. And how are you walking that line? And are they making is your team making an issue of any of those things with Marnie and her condition right now?
Well, they did want us to have another scope for her throat, which would have meant that she, needed to have the test, the swab. Sorry, I can think of the word there. The swab of her nose, and that was
the invasion of the nasal cavity. Yeah. A long instrument back to the blood-brain barrier is how I like to describe it.
Yeah, that was a swift no from us. That was absolutely not. She's 4 years old. She's been in the house for months. Like, you're not, no, you're not doing that to her. And they weren't very happy about that. They basically told us that she wouldn't be able to have the procedure, because anybody who goes into theatre, they want to have one of these tests. Not only that, they actually threatened to remove her from the consultant's list, waiting list, which was a fairly bold move, I thought. But this was only the information from the receptionist and not actually the consultant. So I had the consultant phone me so that we could clear that up. So that was interesting to see the level of, how far they'll take it. But I really did have to stand firm in my daughter's had a hole drilled through her brain.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody poking anything up there. I don't think that's sensible. So, yeah. So, yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on then now and talk about what you might have discovered from your clients and your quantum healing session work about where we all are now, what's happening with us, how we can, wake up every day and be positive and help create a world that we want that might look a little different than some of what we're seeing out there. What good news are you getting?
Oh, wow. I mean, the sessions this past year have just been incredible, so beautiful. And I would just say there's so much light in everything that's so much light, so much self love, self-care, self sovereignty, and the power that we actually hold within us. The freedom that is just inherently ours. We don't need to ask anybody for whether we're free. we are free. That's not, we don't need somebody to give us permission to be free. We already are. And when you're in that limitless space, and expansive space, the energy is just so incredibly beautiful and uplifting. I've had so many amazing sessions with people where this information, and it kind of comes through like a story. There's another piece to the story that comes through. I had one recently where they were talking about the seed and how this seed has been planted, the seed of awakening has been planted, but it needs to be nurtured and loved and tended to and cared for, so it can burst through and grow. And then I had one just yesterday where she talked about the flower turning to the sun and turning to the light and opening up when it's receiving more light. So it's as if that part of the story is just unfolding through these different sessions, which is so lovely. It's so nice to see that. What else? I would say just the comfort in knowing that we all are so cared for and loved, and we all have this team behind us that is urging us to lift up. And I had a session myself a little while ago, where I saw it very symbolically, where there was this little green pixelized box of coded numbers, matrix box I called it, it was in front of me, but it was getting smaller and smaller and further away. And myself and all of us light workers, wishers, people who are awake, were observing this little box becoming smaller and more obsolete. And we were rising in this incredible wave of divine authority. And that's the only way I can describe it. It's divine authority. That we were rising so much that we were actually able to meet all of the beings that were sending us the codes and sending us the information, and re-embody our connection to them so that we become this divine authority in ourselves. And it was just a really beautiful image of that little box getting further and further away, and us just growing into this beautiful wave of light and sovereignty. It was amazing. So yeah, there's a lot around that kind of theme that's coming through many of the sessions, and I think it's alleviating so much of the fear that people have, fear about their lives, fear about the future. Just to know that they are supported and they are surrounded by so many beings and guides that love and adore them and are there to help them through this. I think that just lifts people so much. So yeah, they're powerful sessions right now. They're bringing a lot of comfort and joy to the clients that are having them, which is amazing. And I think as well, this time has really, it's made people stop and want to go within and hear those answers to those big questions in their lives. That, a lot of people are feeling like it's now or never. And yeah, it's just, it's incredible to be able to facilitate these sessions during this time. Amazing. And so not only incredible for the client to have that information and that healing, but just so humbling and beautiful to watch as well, watching people be able to fall in love with themselves again and find their own power and their own. And I think that was when I had my first session a way back a few years ago, I realized the power that I actually had within me was so much more beyond what I'd ever realized. The power to be able to heal ourselves on so many levels and have, come out of it with this lightness of being. Yeah, just really, really empowering and huge sense of freedom and upliftment. So yeah, that's what.
Have you have your clients had many experiences, other, past lives or lives in other realms where they had to go through something like this? Are you finding that people are reaching into some of that, past life lineage to help them get through some of what's happening today?
Yes, sometimes. Yes, they're going back and seeing the patterns that have happened in these other lifetimes that may be playing out now. I immediately thought of a session that I facilitated recently with a girl who was from the Pleiades. Here she'd had many lifetimes where she had been a female who had been she'd been burned at the stake, or she'd been sexually abused, or one of these, one or other types of feminine torture or pain or trauma. But in this home planet, she was a queen that was very much the protector of that planet and protector of the energy sources and the planet was very much under attack from many different types of beings who wanted in to take these resources, and she was in charge of making sure that the whole planet was protected. So it was like the contrast of seeing the lives here and the life that she lived there, and really the power that she had in her that she could bring here but she also had to see that distortion of the masculine and feminine to be able to do what she's supposed to do here. And so, I mean, that answered so many questions for her as to why she'd had so much of this type of trauma in other lifetimes. So yes, I would say people are going back to see the patterns in other lives to show them, why this lifetime might be playing out the way it is, but also being shown their divinity and the strength of who they actually are, the vastness, the power of who they actually are, at the same time, which it's beautiful.
When I have clients, and I myself have been able to meet an aspect of myself that I know that I call on in times where I need to be strong. I learned I have an Orion aspect, a big, huge male warrior Orion aspect. And I kind of imagine him like my psychic bodyguard, like he's right here. And whenever I need to have some fortitude and some real strength where maybe I'm even think about waffling a little bit, I imagine that fellow with me. Making these connections helps us in so many ways in our own life as we play it out, right? In our own life right now, finding out that there are these other parts of ourselves, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. To be able to call in and call upon these parts of ourselves to help us through these times as well. The aspects of us that are able to guide us to where we need to be able to handle everything that's going on. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think for me, we throw around these terms in our community, multidimensional, ascension and stuff. But I think that's what multidimensional means in my way of looking at it. I know that I have this aspect, and if we know that linear time doesn't really exist, well, there he is. Here I am, and he's benefiting from some of the things I'm going through. I'm benefiting from some of the things he's going through, and we kind of support each other. And I have other aspects that I know, I mean, including ancestors, including my mother who's gone 5 years now. But the fact that she went through, Nazi Germany and escaped all of that, and the stories that she told, man, I'm so glad she told me those stories. And I'm gaining strength just from that kind of oral history, but knowing that runs in my blood, and I'm not falling for it.
Yeah.
And I do, and I imagine there'll be a comment or two about even some of the things I'm saying even here right now, which was it's not the same, and I beg to differ.
Mm-hmm.
It is kind of the same. Have clients come to you with some of these questions?
About ancestral lines, or
sure, or what's really happening on the world stage and how we need to deal with it.
Yeah, I would say the most popular question has been my purpose in all this, and how can I help the best? What can I do here to assist humanity the best, or the world? I would say those are the most popular questions. And yes, I would say a lot of people are wondering what is really happening here. What is the truth? How do we know how to discern what the truth is? And a lot of the time, the answer is the vibration and the feeling that it gives you inside, the internal answer is usually the truth. So yeah, I think a lot of people are looking for these wider perspectives as well as their immediate lives. And yeah, it's amazing that this work can give so many different perspectives, and yeah, just it's so comforting as well to see that there is a bigger perspective to this, and we might not have narrowed it down to exactly it, but there's a thread that is weaving through a lot of the work right now that is bringing forward just such beautiful, powerful messages that that I feel are, you know, really helping the collective handle a lot of what's going on, to navigate what's happening here. Yeah.
There's a lot of talk of ascension and, what that means and what you need to do to ascend. And of course, I think, I put the emphasis on do for a reason, because we get some different kinds of answers usually doing this work, exploring consciousness. But for those who are watching, who are kind of wondering about what's going on out there, how it applies to evolution and ascension, and lifting ourselves up, and also about how maybe they have family members or friends who aren't aware of any of this, or in a completely different place. What would you respond to these people who are asking about questions like that?
Well, as far as the ascension part goes, I think I'm immediately drawn to a session that I had with a beautiful client of mine from Mexico, who at the end of an amazing session where we spoke to a light being on a ship that was currently orbiting the Earth, assisting her, the part of her team, her light team. Yeshua Ben Joseph came through afterwards and gave us a beautiful message about ascension and the real process of ascension, which was to know that you are a divine seed, to know that you are the divine in flesh, and walking the earth and owning and knowing that truth was the process of ascension. And embodying that was the real process of ascension. And I mean, that was just so beautiful and powerful to hear that said in that way. So that's probably my answer. And I probably wouldn't omit that for people who may not fully be at that level to understand what that really means, because I think the energy is in the words. So yeah.
Well, that may be a lovely note to just end it right there, because it really all does boil down to that, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, Nina, thank you so much for joining me today and talking about what it's going to need to take to be human in 2021, maybe some of the different ways of looking at it, no matter what's going on out your window, how you might think about what's going on right here within your heart, your own consciousness. You're a beautiful being. Give Marnie a great big hug, and tell everyone how they can find you and what you're up to these days.
I am on www.raphaellasoulsessions.com. I'm doing both BQH and IQH, Illuminated Quantum Healing, as well. I took the New Earth Ascending course last summer as well, so I'm doing both kinds of sessions, which I love. They're both so beautiful. I'm also kind of mixing it up a little bit and putting the bits of each in each, and just making it my own version from the amazing teachers that I have learned this work from. So yeah, I'm just kind of playing with it and seeing where it's taking people, and yeah, just enjoying it. But yeah, I'm on Raphaella Soul Sessions or Quantum Healing Raphaella Soul Sessions on Facebook, which is where I share most of my collective messages and things. So thank you so much for having me, Candace.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. I'm glad you're mixing it up. That's my girl after my own heart. And of course, you also have a directory listing on quantumhealers.com. So you can find Nina any of those places. Okay, Nina. Well, that's it for today. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And until the next episode of Quantum Realms 2021, bye for now.